Hello everyone, back to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. So we're going to take us to around the 9th of January. We're going into the start of the second week of January with the week 10-day updates. Now, we're going to extend out a bit beyond that actually with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. So we'll have a look at that in the second part of the video. The first part of the video, though, will concentrate on what's happening in the stratosphere over North Pole, because I think we've got enough now to say that the sudden stratospheric warming that we've been talking about seemingly for a very long time, but it's probably around 2 or 3 weeks, the sudden stratospheric warming over North Pole has occurred. It has happened. I think we've lifted the temperature up to the required sort of threshold. It's lifted by around 40 degrees since Christmas Day. So, big warming of the stratosphere has taken place at 10 HPA. And although zonal winds probably aren't in reverse today, I think they will be by tomorrow. So, let's say that the sudden stratospheric warming of the North Pole of the Arctic has now occurred. So, I taught you through what's happened. And then we'll have a look and see whether we can see any sort of tropospheric response to this within the next week to 10 days. Weekend forecast has been released earlier on this afternoon, so that's taking us through the new year period. High pressure is going to be in control of the weather, becoming a little bit colder as well. It's starting very mild this weekend, but I think in the days ahead, especially if we get towards the middle part of the coming week, we'll get a bit cold. We're not talking about snow yet, nothing particularly very cold, but it is going to turn colder. There will be night frost and probably some freezing fog patches around as well. So have a look at weekend forecast and see what you think. I'll tell you what's coming up tomorrow at the end of the video. So this is from the JMA. This is showing me temperature at 10 HPA over the North Pole for the winter 2018-19 season. The grey line here is the trend line, and you can see that that is around at its coldest now actually, and then temperature should be rising through the course of the first 2 or 3 months of the year. But in terms of temperature 10 HPA, we should just about be at our coldest point of the year. Now, the black line shows how temperature has been performing through this season, starting back in September. So it went pretty cold with the stratosphere at 10 HPA. Temperature around sort of December, sort of November into the early part of December. Since when we've been going a little bit up and down with periods of slight warming, but also slight cooling of the stratosphere as well. However, you can see the way the black line has lifted up. That's where we are right now. So we're at around minus 20 degrees in terms of the temperature in the stratosphere at 10 HPA. A big rise in the stratospheric temperature at 10 HPA from where we was there around Christmas to where we are right now. That is a very, very big rise in the temperature at 10 HPA, starting from somewhere around minus 75, which is just there, and going up above minus 25, around minus 25, a little bit above, which is where we are right now. So that's something like a 40-50 degree temperature rise that has occurred, and I think that is enough to say that this reaches the requirement for a sudden stratospheric warming. I don't think that black line is going to go much higher. Sometimes they can go right up to here, you know, they can go pretty much off the chart. I don't think we're going to do that with this one. It might go a little bit higher. It might go to around minus 20, but I don't see it getting much higher than that. But anyway, this is enough to say that we have had a sudden stratospheric warming. Let's go a little bit lower down to 30 HPA and see how things are looking there. So only very slight warming at 30 HPA up to yesterday. You can expect that black line to lift up probably somewhere around here, between around minus 30, minus 40. So again, there will be a very significant warming of the stratosphere at 30 HPA in the coming days. It'll take a few days to propagate down, but I think we will see quite a significant warming at 30 HPA by the time we get through to the opening days of the new year. That's closer, of course, to the troposphere, to the boundary level of the atmosphere where weather is taking place. The reason we concentrate on this, the reason we look at this, is that 2, 3, sometimes a little bit longer than that, but 2 or 3 weeks after a sudden stratospheric warming, you can get a tropospheric response. And the tropospheric response that we're going to be looking for is to set up a bubble of high pressure in the troposphere. We get high pressure setting up in the troposphere over the North Pole, then that will be northern blocking. Northern blocking is a route pushing true Arctic or Siberian air out of the North Pole and down into the mid-latitudes. So a lot of our coldest spells tend to follow sudden stratospheric warmings. A couple of caveats is that you can get it very cold without a sudden stratospheric warming. But December to remember, December 2010, had no sudden stratospheric warming whatsoever before it. There was no warming of the stratosphere before that severely cold December to remember in 2010. On the other side of the coin, though, that it is not guaranteed that you will get very cold conditions and blocking after a sudden stratospheric warming. Some of them never have a tropospheric response. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. We do need to be careful because there's a lot of media speculation appearing about this today, and the assumption is that we're going to have Beast from the East Mark II. It is not as straightforward as that. Talk a little bit more about that in a moment. This is how things are looking in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA over North Pole. So obviously something very dramatic has happened. We've pushed these blue colours that should be over the pole, which kind of like the cold temperatures at 10 HPA. And the polar vortex, we've displaced them down into the mid-latitude. So there, those blue colours are now down in sort of Canada, North America, also going into the North Atlantic and over towards Europe as well. In their place, over the North Pole, we've got all this yellow and orange. So much warmer temperatures than you would expect to see are now sitting over the North Pole in the stratosphere at 10 HPA. This is how the GFS is forecasting things to develop. This is metrosteel.fr, by the way, website using here. And you can see that we're going to keep this displacement of the polar vortex at its roots in the stratosphere across sort of America and Europe as well, almost hinting at a split in the polar vortex there. In fact, that may be enough to say that we've got a split, really, because we've got two lobes of dark blue, one over here in America and one over here in Europe, and they've got a lighter blue shade in between, and that may well be just enough to say that a split in the polar vortex has occurred there at its roots on the 6th of January. Someone in the comments at YouTube, I noticed, asked what's so important about a split. So a split in the polar vortex as opposed to displacement isn't really a lot of difference, but the split tends to have a better tropospheric response. If you get a split of a polar vortex in its roots in the stratosphere, you tend to have a greater chance of setting up that bubble of high pressure, that bubble of blocking over the North Pole. Whereas when you displace the polar vortex at its roots in the stratosphere, you can still get a bubble of high pressure in the troposphere. You can still get blocking from that, but it's just a little bit less likely that you will do it, if you see what I mean. So if you want that bubble of high pressure, that block set up over the Arctic, you really want to see a displacement and a split of the polar vortex. That's more or less what we're seeing there, I think, on the 6th of January. Whether that would reach the actual requirement of a split of the polar vortex, I'm not sure. But it's certainly very, very close to it, with those two lobes of blue kind of like splitting apart across the northern part of the Atlantic. And then we go into the extended range of the GFS run. Again, you see there around the 6th of January again, so definitely hinting at something very much along the lines of a split, even if it doesn't reach the technical requirement for a split of PV. Then, and this is cropping up quite a bit with the GFS extended output, we have another go at warming the stratosphere over sort of northern Russia there on the 10th, 11th of January. The temperatures lifting up again, having another go seemingly at warming the stratosphere, so a renewed warming, putting these blue colours in under even more stress, but are still around North America, North Atlantic and Europe. And then we go through to this website, which is weatheriscool.com. So this is telling us that we're going to get a reversal of the zonal winds. We are very, very close to a reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA right now. So that's where we are. This is 0 just here, this line. So we haven't quite got a reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA, but just a little bit short of it today. But by tomorrow, certainly by New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, we should be down here and the zonal winds should be in reverse. So that's something else that we look for to have a technical sudden stratospheric warming. You're looking for the temperature to go up by around 40 degrees or so in the stratosphere over a few days. You're looking for a reversal after that of the zonal winds at 10 HPA. Zonal winds going from westerly to easterlies. And also you're looking for a displacement and a split of the polar vortex. We're going to get all of that, other than we're not sure about the split of the polar vortex. But enough has happened now to say that we have had a sudden stratospheric warming. Tomorrow, or probably New Year's Eve, we will see a reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA. The GFS ensembles look like they're keeping the zonal winds very weak into January as well. In fact, getting weaker, if anything, quite interestingly. That's probably because of that second sudden stratospheric warming that the GFS is picking up on as we go through into the second week of January. So the zonal winds sticking around here, which is a very low level for quite a long time through the early part of January, staying in reverse with the zonal winds as far as the GFS, its ensembles are concerned, for quite some time. Let's see if we can get rid of some of these tabs, and we go through to the Ecmwf analysis from the University of Berlin. So that's how temperatures were looking in the stratosphere yesterday on the 28th of December. So of course we've got the North Pole highlighted helpfully on this particular chart, this blue, this black cross just here. So that's the reason the temperature is lifted up by that required amount to say that we have had a sudden stratospheric warming yesterday. This is how things looking for today. When the Ecmwf was released last night, it's forecasting temperatures to look like that. So again, not going much higher than where it was yesterday, probably up to around -25, possibly getting to -20. Shouldn't go a great deal higher than that, but we may just see that black line on the JAMA chart tick up a little bit more for tomorrow's update. But obviously very warm temperatures now in the stratosphere at 10 HPA, displacing these blue colours down into the mid-latitudes. That's how things are forecast to be looking on New Year's Day. So again, significantly warmer than average with the temperature in the stratosphere at 10 HPA then. We are up to around -30 to -25, something like that. So just ticking down a little bit. We can't maintain those very warm levels of temperature in the stratosphere indefinitely. So after a few days, they'll start to tick down. But that's still a really warm temperature at 10 HPA for New Year's Day. And then that takes us through to the 5th of January. And again, I think this is hinting at a split of the polar vortex by the time we get through to the 5th of January. This is how things are looking. So the North Pole temperature at 10 HPA by then is kind of like -45 to -40, about that. So again, just ticking down a little bit. But notice by this point we've got the two lobes of blue again, one over North America and Canada over here, one over Europe there, and in between through the North Atlantic we've got this lighter shading of blue. And again, I think that does hint at a split in the polar vortex sometime around, say, the 5th or the 6th of January. We may well get briefly anyway a little split in the polar vortex. That's how things look at the very end of the Ecmwf run. And that's the 7th of January, and we find again warmer than average temperatures at 10 HPA. And notice there's that renewed warming starting to occur over northern parts of Russia just there. Again, I think it does hint at a bit of a split in polar vortex with a darker shading of blue just there, and a darker shading just there, and then a lighter sort of shading through there. So again, that would imply chance of a split in the polar vortex. Going a bit lower down to 30 HPA. This is how things are looking on New Year's Day. So a warming, a significant warming of the stratosphere, also propagating down to 30 HPA. There's the black cross just there. That's lifting temperatures up to around minus 40 to minus 35. So again, very significant warming occurring at 30 HPA. Also, that's the 4th of January at 30 HPA. Again, it does imply the chance of a bit of a split beginning to take place in the polar vortex at its roots in the stratosphere, with a darker shading of blue there, darker shading there. It's not quite as apparent though as it is at 10 HPA. And then that's as far as we can go to the 7th of January with the Ecmwf, and again you see by that point the temperature at 30 HPA is going to be between around minus 50 and minus 45 degrees, something like that. So again, significantly warmer than average. In terms of the zonal winds, so going into reverse, so we have already reversed the zonal winds at 1 HPA. That's where we are right now, still with the zonal winds in reverse. They're going to recover a little bit over the next 10 days, but way below where they was earlier in December up there. So a little bit of a recovery going from a reversal back into a westerly zonal wind at 1 HPA. But way weaker than they was back in December. Go lower down though to 10 HPA. We can see 10 HPA is depicted by this blue line just here. We can see that the zonal winds are crashing already. That's where we are, just above that all-important zero just there. So the zonal winds at 10 HPA aren't in reverse yet today, but within the next couple of days, certainly by New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and then through the first days of January, we should see the zonal winds going into reverse at 10 HPA. It doesn't look like we quite reverse the zonal winds at 30 HPA. It does get very close to it for around a day or two, but it's really at 10 HPA, but it looks like those zonal winds will be going into reverse. So very significant warming of the stratosphere has taken place, with seeing the temperature go up by around 40 degrees since Christmas Day in the stratosphere over North Pole at 10 HPA. Zonal winds are collapsing and they're going to go into reverse in the next 2 or 3 days. That looks very prominent, and through the first week of January we will probably get some sort of split in the polar vortex. A little bit more uncertain about that, but putting it all together, we can say that a sudden stratospheric warming has occurred over the North Pole at 10 HPA, and now we've got to wait and see what the response is to that from Chauncey. Now, as I said, there's already a lot of media speculation appearing about this. This is from Sky News, for example, showing beasts from the east to UK in the midst of a sudden stratospheric warming. Actually, not UK in the midst of a sudden stratospheric warming, it's the North Pole, but okay, a sudden stratospheric warming is taking place, and the speculation is because the beasts from the east at the end of February followed the very dramatic sudden stratospheric warming that occurred back in the earlier part of February. Because of that, we're going to have beasts from the east too, and we'll go off and running into a very severe spell of weather through the middle of January. Now, that could well be what happens. I really won't be ruling that out. As I say, a lot of our coldest spells do tend to follow sudden stratospheric warnings, but it isn't guaranteed. So I'm going to go back to 2001. This is how these temperatures were looking on the 15th of December 2001 in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA over the northern hemisphere. So quite a warming of the stratosphere was taking place over Russia. Had a very cold temperatures over those blue and purple colours over the North Pole. Let's go through to Christmas Eve. So this is how Christmas Eve 2001 looks in terms of the stratospheric temperatures, and you'll see a major sudden stratospheric warming was taking place on Christmas Eve 2001. Started across Russia and Siberia, moved into the North Pole, started to displace those blue and purple colours down into Canada, North America and the North Atlantic as well. Let's move through a couple of days more to Boxing Day 2001. That's how things are looking. So again, displacement of the polar vortex, those blue colours pushing down into Canada, North America, the North Atlantic, also into west of Europe, and pushing those blue colours out is all of these yellow, orange and red colours here over the North Pole itself. So again, a very major one, probably a little bit stronger actually, this warming, than the one that is currently going on in terms of the temperature at the North Pole. And then let's get through to New Year's Eve 2001. That's how things are looking. So again, big displacement of those blue colours down into mid latitudes, and in their place we've got those warmer, brighter colours in the North Pole itself. I'm not sure we did get a split of a polar vortex at its roots in December 2001 with this Sudden Stratospheric Warming, but we certainly did get a major displacement of the polar vortex, and we had a major Sudden Stratospheric Warming. What happened in the winter of 2001-2002, well, this is Christmas Day 2001, while that warming was going on, it was actually having quite a potent northerly blast. We had a lot of cold Christmases during the 1990s and early 2000s, despite the fact that generally this period is remembered for mild winters. Funnily enough, despite generally being mild winters, there were quite a few cold Christmases. This is one of them, 2001. Proper northerly there, hitting the country on Christmas Day 2001, and that carried on into Boxing Day as well. There was snow up in the north. Obviously, with the Sudden Stratospheric Warming going on, a lot of the speculation on the forums at the time were that we was probably going to have quite a cold winter, because we had a coolish December, a couple of northerly snaps, and everything looked pretty good actually to have a cold winter through January and February 2002. That's how it was on New Year's Eve 2001, with high pressure just sitting very close to the country. Turned really cold and frosty over that New Year. There was very severe frost indeed for the New Year of 2001-2002. Not much snow. The snow showers that happened with those northerly winds disappeared as the high pressure built, but it's really cold, really frosty through the new year of 2002. High pressure stuck around through the first week of January 2002. Obviously, after that sudden stratospheric warming, we was all waiting for that high pressure to start moving north, to go into the northern latitudes and send us off into an even colder spell of genuine northern blocking. But look what's happening here on the 8th of January 2002, when you expect to start seeing signs of blocking to the northern latitudes. We begin to get those purple colours turning up. So we're still under a ridge of high pressure on the 8th of January 2002. It's still mainly frosty, cold and dry, but it's not a pattern that's going to let that high pressure go north, because it's got all these purple colours, strong polar vortex to our north. What actually happened is through January 2002, as we get further into the month, as it just turns more unsettled, we never get a tropospheric response to that sudden stratospheric warming. We just keep these continuous areas of low pressure blasting in across the country through January and into February 2002. Lots of heavy rain, but mild, very mild through January, February 2002. After that earlier period of frost around the new year, we really did have a very mild January and February indeed. Look at that on the 26th of February 2002. Low pressure is just churning around the UK and the North Atlantic. Absolutely no northern blocking going on whatsoever, and that's how we aimed that winter of 2002. So that is a winter that had a major sudden stratospheric warming occurring quite early in December, around Christmas. But there was no tropospheric response. There was no blocking during that winter, and it's a warning to anybody that thinks that because we have a sudden stratospheric warming, and it is a major warming of the stratosphere, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to downplay it, but it is a warning that it is not guaranteed that you're going to get northern blocking after a sudden stratospheric warming. It just so happens that the last few sudden stratospheric warmings that we've had, thinking of the one that occurred in February, and then going further back to 2013, we had a major warming of the stratosphere in early January 2013. A lot of the sudden stratospheric warnings that we've had recently have tended to be followed by significant periods of northern blocking and cold weather. But 2001, 2002, it's a warning that it is not guaranteed. Also, in this winter 2001-2002, kind of close to where we are with the westerly QBO as well. It was a winter that was transitioning from a west to an east QBO. But on the other side of the coin, this winter 01-02 was close to solar maximum, the second solar maximum of solar cycle number 23. So it was through a period of very active solar activity and sunspots, whereas now we know that we are very close to solar minimum. So it swings and roundabouts. There are significant differences this winter to 01-02, but I really wanted to throw it in just to show that it is not guaranteed that we're going to get cold and blocking from this sudden stratospheric warming. We may do, but we need to wait and see whether that tropospheric response does start showing up. Right, let's do a bit of forecasting. We're going to have a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. We've got the Ecmwf here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80 fast feet, is an area in atmosphere where high pressure and low pressure are being moved around by jet stream running above. Red stripe lights to high pressure, blue to low pressure. Ecmwf has a large ridge of above average heights over and just a little bit to the north of the UK. That's not northern blocking, but it is taking the high pressure a little bit further north, and it has done recently for the 7 to 10 day time frame, and so that's going to be mainly dry but quite cold. You would expect frost and fog with that. Not much snow because obviously high pressure is in control, so there's no sort of precipitation, but it would be very chilly, I think, over that area of high pressure based on the ECM scenario. The GFS is quite different with the placement of that ridge. So again, this is 7 to 10 days time, taking us just about to the second week of January, and we see the high pressure, the above average heights, much further south and southeast. With this solution, low pressures out in the Atlantic, more influence from the jet stream, all looks much flatter with the flow and the jet going through something a little bit like that. So the Atlantic is putting that ridge under a lot of pressure by the time you get through to 7 to 10 days time, and actually breaking down that ridge and sending us into a westerly Atlantic driven phase of weather. GFS ensembles are looking like this. Look at Bristol. Someone's asked me to have a look at Bristol today. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Bristol, starting off very mild through to New Year. That's New Year's Day just there. Then a little bit of a lowering of the temperature takes place as we get through the first week of January. It's not really till the second week of January though, that we do see those upper air temperatures going back towards the 30-year temperature average. However, this period just here is going to have high pressure centred over top of the country, and so although the upper air temperatures are still going to be relatively warm, I think it will be a lot colder down on the surface. Precipitation is very interesting. So it looks like it's pretty dry now through to around the 6th or 7th of January. No precipitation spikes really appearing till around the 6th, 7th of January. It's actually probably not till the 8th that the precipitation spikes come back with any conviction. Now, a couple of days ago, the GFS ensembles were bringing the precipitation spikes back around the 3rd of January. Then yesterday, the GFS ensembles were bringing the precipitation spikes back around the 5th of January. Now they're not really bringing the precipitation spikes back until around the 7th or the 8th of January. So something's going on here, and what's happening is that this breakdown to the high pressure is being pushed back by the GFS and its ensembles day by day. So the question is whether this high pressure will ever break down, or whether the ECM has this right and high pressure will stick close to the UK even in the second week of January. Temperature anomalies from the 29th of December to 6th of January, milder than average, but not quite as much so as they have been over the Christmas period. but nevertheless still milder than average with the temperature anomaly in the weekend, and much drier than average too. Not a surprise given that ensemble for Bristol we was just looking at very dry conditions, temperature precipitation anomalies from the 29th of December to the 6th of January. That's how the GFS looks for Wednesday, 2nd of January. So this is GFS operational run with high pressure centred over the top of the UK. This all covered by weekend forecast. Of course, this high pressure stays in control through to the end of the coming week. Probably increasingly frosty by night and some dense fog patches as well. Then that high pressure begins to collapse very quickly next weekend. That's the 6th of January when we're back into that westerly flow and starting to bring weather fronts in from off the Atlantic. And then we go into westerly phase as we get to day 10, which is the 8th of January. Wet and windy weather is moving in from off the Atlantic. High pressure influences never truly go away though. They're still hanging around to the south and southeast of the country, even into the second week of January. That's the 12th, for example. Low pressure's out to the northwest. High pressure is to the south. That's as far as we can go with the GFS operational run. It's Monday the 14th of January, and we're in a westerly. We've got high pressure down to our southwest of Ireland, low pressure up to the north. Notice absolutely no sign of any blocking on our side of the pole anyway. So we've got these blue and purple colours over Greenland. We've got blue and purple colours up to our north. Little bit of ridgings taking place up here around the Arctic. But to be honest, there's not much sign from the GFS operational run that we're looking at here. There's no sign up to the end of it, which is 14th of January, no sign of a tropospheric response from blocking to the stratospheric warming. What about the GFS parallel run? That's how we look on Wednesday. High pressures over top of the country with the GFS parallel run. Then this will become the operational run of the GFS next year. At the moment, they're just running missing parallel while they iron out any problems with the model before the upgraded version becomes the operational. Now that's Friday, and by this point the GFS operation was already starting to put this high pressure under pressure. The parallel GFS run has its high pressure centred over the UK, and that continues into next weekend. So by Sunday, Sunday the 6th of January, the operational GFS run had us back in a west-southwesterly. The parallel GFS run still has us under that area of high pressure, and it would be cold under that high pressure. You will get substantial, significant night frost and probably some dense freezing fog as well. What happens as we get to day 10 is that we keep this high pressure very, very close to us. It is weakening a little bit though. Notice a really cold Arctic plunge is moving into Scandinavia and Northern Europe with these blue and purple colours just here. That's real winter biting up there. In the extended range with the parallel GFS run, we keep a lot of high pressure going. We never break the Atlantic through, even into the second week of January. It stays mainly dry but cold and frosty, very, very cold for Scandinavia and much of Northern Europe on the parallel GFS run. That's how we finish up, still with that ridge centred through the country. No true Arctic or Siberian air getting to us, but obviously under this ridge of high pressure it would be cold and frosty, and the true cold Arctic air is actually just to our east and northeast. There's the upper air temperature showing that most of northern, central and eastern Europe really is plunged into the freezer during that second week of January. Severely cold across much of northern Europe. The UK, as is often the case, just on the periphery of it, but it would be pretty cold under that ridge in any case. ECM looks like this. We know it's going to be more anticyclonic from the 500 millibar height anomaly flowchart. So Wednesday sees that high pressure still in control, and that high pressure is maintained through next weekend as well. No breakdown like the GFS operational run is doing. We get to day 10 and we've still got that high pressure very close to us. There's that northerly plunge moving into northern parts of Europe. I would imagine in the northeast the cold air, the cold upper air temperatures is starting to dig in. That's what we see there. For us, we're under that ridge of high pressure, so it will probably still be pretty frosty, pretty chilly under that ridge, but not yet true Arctic or Siberian air. And we'd have to wait and see where things go beyond that. just have a look at the ECM ensembles via the postage stamps at the Icelandic Met Office. See all the options on the table. At day 10 on the 8th of January, we've got 17 members of the ECM ensembles with an area of high pressure centred over or just a little bit to the north of the UK. And then we've got another 11 that has a high pressure a little bit to the west of the UK, and that also includes the operational GFS run, ECM run, the run that we was just looking at. There's 8 ensemble members that have high pressure, looking like it's becoming northern blocking, going up to the north and the northeast with low pressure out to the west. So those ones are more unsettled and actually milder as the air is pulling up from the south. But watch out for the high pressure over Scandinavia that's trying to backwind into the east. There's another 8 ensemble members that have high pressure centred in that sort of position. And then there's a further 7 that have the high pressure to our northeast on the 8th of January. Those ones bringing in easterly winds. So the position of this high pressure, what happens to it, is going to be very, very important. But you'll notice there are very few ECM ensemble members. There are 51 ECM ensemble members. There are very few of them that are doing what the GFS is doing, which is placing us in a flat westerly flow and just bringing the Atlantic winds back in at day 10. So what the GFS is doing is not at all supported by the ECM and its ensembles. As we go to 2 weeks away, which is the 13th of January, we've got 31 members of the ECM ensembles that have high pressure over and to the west of the country. And then we've got 20 ensemble members that have a deep area of low pressure centred over the top of the UK. So very inconclusive, more or less, not quite a 50-50 split, but something like 60-40 split between the ECM ensembles about what's happening in 2 weeks' time, which is taking us into the middle of January. Notice, however, in 2 weeks' time, there is very little sign of any genuine northern blocking, which you would expect to see somewhere around Greenland or the north of Scandinavia, this sort of area just here. Very little sign of genuine northern blocking on the 13th of January within the ECM ensembles. So it's all very inconclusive, this. It's very inconclusive about what the response to this stratospheric warming will be. It's very inconclusive about where we'll be even by next weekend. Will we be returning to westerlies, or will we still be under an area of high pressure? I've got a feeling that high pressure is going to be more stubborn. So I think the parallel GFS and the ECM probably have this right and will keep high pressure through to next weekend, dry, frosty and cold. Where we go beyond that is going to be really interesting. It will probably determine what's going to happen through the rest of January. Will that high pressure collapse and we unleash the Atlantic? Will the high pressure go north and become a blocking feature courtesy of the Sudden Stratospheric Warming? All will be revealed. Right, it's been a very extended video today, but I did want to put that section in about what happened in 2001, 2002, just to dampen things down a little bit, because I know the excitement and speculation is getting quite prominent now about this sudden stratospheric warming. But let's just calm down things a little bit and wait and see what's going to happen over the next week or two. Will we see that response in the troposphere to what's happened in the stratosphere? All will be revealed, as I say. Now, tomorrow we're going to start off with a seasonal model roundup for January, February, March. So we're going to get all the long-range models together like we always do when we're doing seasonal updates. But we're not looking at the full spring, but we're not looking at the full winter either. We're looking at the period of January to March to see whether a colder, later winter period is supported within those long-range models. We'll also have another week to 10-day video update tomorrow with all of the latest on what's happening in the stratosphere, of course, as well. Right, I think I better close the video there because we've gone on for a very, very long time indeed. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.